Hello and welcome to the viewers of this video. This is the Orange Fan here, bringing you another entry for the episode Recap and Thoughts category. This video will be dedicated to the A segment of episode 7 of The Loud House, Picture Perfect. We begin this segment with Lincoln talking to the audience about how his parents' anniversary is coming up, and he decided to make his traditional anniversary gift for them, a homemade coffee mug. We then get to see the mug, and it may not be grade A pottery material, but it's the thought that counts. It's a nice gesture all the same. But then the Loud sisters arrive and give their interpretations of what they think the gift is. None of them think it's a coffee mug. And Lola ends up blabbing to Lincoln that the parents end up putting his gifts in a box and stowing it away in the attic, despite the other sisters' attempts to prevent Lola from revealing this to their only brother. Lincoln then goes up to the attic to see for himself, and upon opening a do not open box, he does find out that the coffee mugs are stowed away. And this upsets Lincoln greatly, understandably so. The sisters continue to debate over what the coffee mug looks like. One of them thinks it resembles their Aunt Shirley, and we get a brief glimpse of what she looks like. Lori then, though, comments that Lincoln is pathetic and that it takes the fun out of making fun of him. Lincoln points out that he can still hear their insults, but they mockingly reply that they're well aware of it. Lincoln wonders what he can do He wants to find a present that's one that his parents won't stow away in the attic, and Lincoln's wondering how he can come up with one on such short notice. But then he stumbles across his dad's old camera, and this gives him an idea. A family picture of him and his sisters. While Lori questions why not just use the built-in cameras on a cell phone, Lincoln says it would be like coloring the Mona Lisa with crayons. And he decides to organize it, so they all head out to the backyard to take the picture, of course, and they're all in position. Lincoln sets the timer to join them, and they're waiting for it to go off, but it's taking some time. Growing impatient, Lori ends up just deciding to do selfies, and it leads to a dominoes effect where everyone starts to get distracted when Lincoln's trying to rein them in, and it ends up, the picture gets taken, and it shows them all wild and chaotic, and Lincoln thinks this isn't going to be a good picture. So he decides he wants to do a redo and to make it the perfect picture. He attempts to try and get his sisters to take the redo, and he has to be, Lincoln resorts to more forceful methods to get them to cooperate. In one case, he holds on to Luna and Luann's items, not wanting them to be part of the picture, and says something might happen to them if they don't agree to just take the picture normally. He also does a few changes too. He gives Lisa Lenny's sunglasses and Lisa's glasses to Lenny. And, in one case, when Lori says she's not willing to take the picture again, Lincoln says he intends to have someone else take her place if she won't. The person in question is a girl who bears a strong resemblance to Lori. Her name is Carol Pingree, and apparently she beat out Lori as the homecoming queen. We don't get to hear Carol talk, though, because Lori slams the door in her face, and she begrudgingly agrees to take part in this redo picture. Even with all the sisters together, Lincoln does go a bit overboard. He puts marshmallows in the twins' in the gap where their front teeth would be, so it would pose as front teeth. He gives Luna a long-haired wig, and then he has all of them, even the 4 main family pets, wear Christmas sweaters. And when Lori questions him about what was wrong with the old picture, in a case of being tongue-tied and put on the spot, Lincoln ends up saying they were themselves. This gets them offended, but then Lori demands they just get it over with and then chastises Lincoln for being mad at them for being themselves. And once the picture's taken, they're all gone in a flash. After Lincoln has the picture framed, though, he then sees his sisters doing their own thing and antics, their own antics, I should say, and he's looking at the picture, which does look a bit artificial, admittedly, and then he contemplates something. The parents' anniversary day rolls around, and Lincoln is the first to give up his present to them. He ends up going with the picture that was first done, the one with all of them running amok and wild. And while the sisters are a bit annoyed at him at first for thinking he couldn't get it right, he reveals he used that picture because it was the real one, the real them, and then they hug him. But then at the end, Lincoln has a moment where he says all of their presents are going to go into the box where his coffee mugs went because he outdid them with the picture. They aren't happy about this, but Lincoln sighs. He's content, sighs with content that this is his siblings, and we end the segment there. Now this segment, this one I felt I understood the idea they were going for. I thought there was a nice message there, but once again, it's a case of I don't feel it was executed as well as it could have been. And the whole be yourself moral, we see that a lot, and people do think it's for good reason because people have identity crises or they have insecurities about themselves. So it's meant to be a nice uplifting message. Now, the execution, though, for this segment is what I wasn't too fond of, and it actually reminded me quite a bit of something I've dealt with before from people I personally know, like some people I know. Now, as it was said, really, I don't think Lincoln really was bothered by them being themselves as the segment tried to paint it as. I think that was just more him being caught on the spot and tongue-tied because, let's be honest, when you're put on the spot, you tend to say stuff that you probably wouldn't say if you actually had time to think it over and actually give a more sufficient answer, because being put on the spot is not a good thing. And that's what I felt was what happened to Lincoln, because I think him wanting a nice picture where they weren't all running amok, I think that was reasonable. Did Lincoln go overboard? Yes, he did. He did go overboard with the whole Christmas sweater thing, and again, I feel the problem was, though, it was just like we only get it. The segment only brings attention to Lincoln's part of the conflict, and I should get back to that. Why did it bother me how the sisters seem to get on Lincoln's case just for being themselves? There's some people I know in real life who try to twist and distort the whole be yourself moral. And that's what it reminded me a lot. So it could very well be because of my personal experiences with those people, and it reminded me of that. That's why it might have irritated me. But, well, there are people I know who pretty much they use the be yourself card to they treat it like a get out of jail for free card. Like, they use it to justify unwarranted hostility or unwarranted antagonism, or pretty much just acting entitled or acting like a jerk and expecting to get away with it. And when I or other people have rightly so called them out on their bad behavior, they would respond with, "I'm just being myself. It's everyone else's fault for not accepting me for who I am. How dare you criticize me for being myself?" When it's really, you have to draw a line in the sand at some point. You can't use the be yourself excuse to get out of any bad behavior. If you're doing something wrong, you should be called out for it. Don't try to justify it with I'm just being myself. And that's kind of what I got the impression from the sisters. It felt like they were just using the being themselves cards to kind of justify kind of running amok. And again, I'm not saying that Lincoln was justified in going overboard the way he was. I'm not saying it was right for him to do that, but I can understand why Lincoln might have done that, because he wanted a nice picture because his old gifts were rejected by his parents, apparently, and he wanted something that they wouldn't reject. And well, when they didn't cooperate with him the first time, Lincoln felt he had to be a little more controlling just to get them to cooperate. And again, that's not saying it was justified. I'm just saying I understand where he was coming from. Because let's repeat this now. Understanding someone's actions is not the same as justifying someone's actions. And that was something else too, is we only really bring attention to Lincoln's part of the conflict, but to be honest, the sisters were not blameless in this whole thing either. You could even say the sisters were the instigators for the conflict, because Lola was the one who ratted out the fact that the parents rejected Lincoln's coffee mugs, and then they all made fun of him for it when he was in hearing distance. So again, we're supposed to see Lincoln as the bad guy for making his sisters not be themselves, but we're supposed to sympathize with the sisters, but they weren't blameless paragons in this conflict either. They kind of did egg Lincoln on into his more controlling, and again, that's not justifying Lincoln's actions, it's merely understanding his point of view. And as for the subject about the parents rejecting his coffee mugs and stowing them away, a few relatives of mine and a family friend of mine were watching this segment. They were actually quite horrified that the Loud parents did that, because the parents watching were ones who treasured everything that their kids made, even if it wasn't grade A material. So it kind of did rub them the wrong way that the Loud parents did that to Lincoln. Now, again, I myself am not a parent yet, so I can't really say from my own experiences, but yeah, I think that parents probably could have done something better, but handled it better. But at the same time, though, I don't see how Lincoln's coffee mugs were embarrassing enough that they felt they had to just stow it away, because Lori claimed it was crushing their souls, and again, maybe that was just siblings exaggerating to razz each other. I fully acknowledge that, but I still don't see how they were truly embarrassing. And while the parents did end up liking the chaotic picture, again, it kind of just feels like the message was coming off as, oh, Lincoln was the bad guy here and the sisters were blameless. But as I've been saying, I don't agree with that. I agree Lincoln wasn't faultless, but I do think his sisters do share some of the fault too for ragging on him and not cooperating with him, at least the first time around before he went overboard. I think him just wanting him to have a nice wasn't unreasonable, but Lori was too impatient and kind of started the domino effect, which led to it. And yeah, so my main gripe was it just reminded me too much of some people that I know who try to use Be Yourself as a get out of jail for free card. So that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. For something I did like, though, the introduction of Carol Pingree, Lori's apparent rival. I thought that was a nice touch, and I was bummed out that we didn't get to see more of her. Like, maybe they could have brought her in the future, because there's a lot of potential there, a rival for Lori, but we don't really know Carol's side of the conflict. Like, we don't know if Carol returns the feelings of rivalry, or she's indifferent to Lori's grudge against her, or if she's even aware of it. And we don't know. Does her personality make Lori on her worst days look benevolent in comparison? Or is she actually an honestly nice person and Lori's grudge against her is just a misunderstanding on Lori's part? And that also kind of does make people question what was Carol's motive for taking Lori's place in the picture. Was it a way to one-up Lori, or was she just helping a friend with a favor? And if that was the case, how did she and Lincoln become friends with each other, or friendly enough where Lincoln could call her for help? And there's a lot of great potential there with Carol, and I do wonder what she sounds like. Personally, I imagine Catherine Tabor, Lori's voice artist, also voicing Carol, but using a more formal or polite speech pattern in comparison. That might actually be a good point too. Like, for people in the comments section, you should comment what you imagine Carol's voice to sound like, or who you think should voice Carol. That could lead to a lot of ideas. Or what do you think Carol's personality is like? Or yeah, that's fun stuff we can read in the comments section. So there you have it. This one, I understood what they were going for, but the execution didn't quite land for me. But I did like the introduction of Carol, and I really do hope Carol Pingree's a character who returns in the future, because, like I said, there's a lot of potential for that character. As usual, we'll be covering the B segment tomorrow. Take care, and until next time.